Okay, cool. Welcome. All right, so today we're going to be going over some games from, well, two different games actually. Both games were played against experts, and the theme of today's video is going to be basically attacking, putting your opponent under pressure, right? So when you're playing somebody high rated, often the thing is like, do you want to play safe and solid, or like how do you play? And most people are under the impression that you should play safe and solid, that you should know you kind of bear down and kind of play your best, coolest zero weaknesses. But that's not actually the case. That's what they want you to do because you'll think you'll be playing solid and actually you won't be. They'll just come down and collapse your so-called safeness. However, if you put pressure on them, that's when good things can happen. So these two games are going to be all about pressure. All right, so I'm gonna jump right in. The first game was against Lawrence White. So Lawrence is a pretty strong guy. He's like 2160, near master level. He's been playing for a long time, and yeah, he also went to the same college I did, and we played this both at the same college, Georgia Tech. So this was an interesting game. So Lawrence is white, and I was black. So let's take a look at this from the black side. So the game began with D4, and then I played knight f6. He played knight f3, and I played e6. So this can allow me to go into Benoni or a Nimzo or a Queen's Indian, something of that sort. And here he played g3. So this was the first interesting move of the game, really. After g3, notice that white has not played c4 yet. So since white has not played c4, this actually allows black a very interesting move here that's supposed to give black a pretty good amount of play. So here black played, or I played b5. And the point of b5 is pretty simple. It stops white from playing c4, and it gets ready to neutralize the light squared bishop by putting them on the same diagonal as each other. So you play bishop g2, we have bishop b7, castles, and c5. So here I decided to strike at the center. White has one center pawn, so I decided to get me a center pawn in there as well. Um, White can play e3, but that seems a little bit passive, so I wanted to see what he'd do. Normally players play things like c3 here, but he actually took, which I didn't think was a good idea because it just activated a piece for me. And now I'm ready to play d5 soon and just kind of dominate the center. So here he played knight bd2, looking to play c4 perhaps. It looked like he might be trying for c4. So a normal player might just go on autopilot and castle, in which case he may play c4. But I thought, why not prevent that idea? So I played d5, which stopped c4 and also gained a ton of control over the e4 square. Notice how black just completely dominates the center right now. So far, I think black's doing pretty great. He played knight b3, attacking my bishop. I did not want to give away the bishop pair, as you'll see. The bishop pair is often very important in chess and in a lot of middle game positions, so I was keeping my bishop reserved. He attacked my pawn. I defended it, and he attacked it again. Here's another, I guess, important positional part. You don't want to take that pawn because the a6 pawn will become weak, and if you leave the pawn there, then the b pawn will become weak, so here it's best to push. Bishop d2 attacking the pawn, and then here was an interesting point in the game, at least psychologically. So right now, white's just starting to become active. Seems like white may try to get some play by playing queen to e1 and trying to provoke a5, in which case the b5 square will become weak, and then his knight can use the b5 square, etc., etc. So I actually played a move that was very annoying for white to meet. I played knight to e4 here. And the idea is, for one, I'm threatening to win his bishop pair, and Lawrence is very positional, so I know that's something he definitely was not going to allow under any circumstances. And the problem is you can't really eliminate this knight, because if you take with the bishop, where there goes your bishop pair, so, it's gone, no bishop pair for you. And if you don't want to give away this bishop, then you're going to have to make a really awkward decision. You're going to have to either put it on e1, which looks weird, undevelop it to c1, put it on e3, also doesn't look optimal, f4 looks sketch due to the double pawns, and those are the only legal squares. So this move forced some annoyance, and after the game, Lawrence was even saying, like, this move was literally annoying. He said I wasn't allowing him any play, which I was, happy to hear. Anyway, so bishop came back, but Lawrence did have a plan for how to get this bishop active. Castles, f3, and then knight c5. So this is actually based off a little bit of a miscalculation. In my head, I figured that after bishop takes b4, that I could play knight takes b3, and bishop takes d6, takes here, takes here, takes here, here, and then here. And I thought this was, pretty good for me because I figured if he played e3, then I could play e5. And when I was going over this game with Deepak mentioned that there was this move here, b4. So yeah, b4. And this move almost works, but see, it looks like white's losing or black's losing, but black has this move knight c6 and everything's okay. Anyway, let's go back though. So bishop f2 was his move, which I think was a little bit better. Keeping the bishop on the diagonal, there's no more pin problems, because again, if we look in this line after right here, you know, this would not have worked out well because of the pin problem. You can't play queen e1 because I'm threatening e5, so e3 gets out of the pin, but then just e5, and yeah, I'm going to be getting pretty good amount of play pretty soon, you see? So yeah, not so good. So bishop f2 I thought was a smart move by him. Here I decided to change the position. So right now I have a pretty good control of the center. I have one pawn in the center. He doesn't have a pawn in the center, so I thought that was nice. And I wanted to kind of change the nature of the position. So I decided to give up my bishop pair in exchange for having an extremely strong center and for him having a compromised pawn structure. I figured those two strengths would would balance out the loss of the bishop pair. So here I played e5, allowing knight f5, which is netting my bishop. But then I took here on b3, and he has to take back. And I just played rook e8. So I guess you could say a threat now is to play bishop f8, g6, and bishop g7, so he had to get rid of that. So knight takes, queen takes. And yeah, this was the position I was going for back when I played e5. Okay, so white has the bishop pair, but as you can see, his bishops are very dormant. Meanwhile, black has a beautiful looking center and a nice bishop on b7 and easy development. I think black's slightly better here. I definitely prefer to be black. So I played rook c1, threatening bishop c5, so I developed and I covered that. Black played queen d2, looking to probably play rook d1, just connecting rooks and pressuring the b4 pawn. And I played rook c8. So here I think it's fair to say that black has a pretty nice position. All of his pieces are developed, all of white's pieces are pretty much developed. And I would say black is slightly for choice here. However, here, white whipped out a move that I really didn't see coming. When I say whipped out, I mean like right after I played rook c8. I think it was obvious that rook c8 was going to be my next move, but he just whipped out this move, bishop h3. And I started to look at this move, and here I actually started to get a little bit scared, right? Because bishop h3 is pretty simple. It's using an overloading tactic on the queen and combining that with the pin on the knight. So basically what that means is if I move the knight, I'm losing the rook, and if I don't move the knight, then he's threatening bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, and queen takes b4, when all of a sudden my queen side's starting to fall apart. And yeah, it turns out this isn't really that easy to meet. For instance, if I play the obvious looking a5, then his whole position comes alive because he can play bishop takes, queen takes, and then bishop b6. And then all of a sudden just everything's falling apart here. So a5 doesn't really get the job done. And if I play rook takes c1, which I actually played rook takes c1 in game, rook takes c1, and then I try to unpin, then he'll have control of the c file. So let's just imagine rook takes c1, knight f6. He can play bishop c5, and then he's getting the b4 pawn. So I got kind of scared here. But I did realize there was something not so great about this move. So he has this light squared bishop, right? Which is, you know, a good defender of his king. And I know in this position you might think, like, king safety? Like, really? Of all the things to think of? But no, it matters. He has this light squared bishop, which is a good defender of his king. And he took it out the diagonal, signaling that he's ready to give that bishop away for my knight. So this made me think, hey, wait a minute. That means that if I could get this bishop working towards his king, you know, that he wouldn't be in the best straits. And so here I came up with this sacrifice that you're going to see, which I decided that, okay, if I allow him to take, and then I can immediately blow open the center and come towards his king, it's going to be very hard for him to defend. So I'll show you the plan. Well, the plan pretty much happened in game, and I'll show you up to where I calculated once we get there. So I started this whole sacrificing attacking concept off of first playing rook takes c1 to clarify the rook situation, because as you'll see, it's going to be important that my rook's on the e file. So I play rook takes c1 to keep my rook on the e file. And then I played d4. So d4 is pretty much forcing the issue. Right now, if white does not take my knight, then I'm just going to play knight to b6, and I may even play knight to d5, and I'm just going to have a dream position. White's going to have a terrible position. This bishop will look pointless on this square. So I'm pretty much forcing white to accept my sacrifice. If he doesn't accept my sacrifice, he's just clearly worse. So here white took the knight, played queen takes b4, and then here was the real point of the whole, I guess, sacrifice, starting back with rook takes c1. And if you want to take a few seconds and see if you can find my next move in this position. I think there are actually maybe two moves that look good, but you can find the one I chose. Doop, doop, doop. All right, I'm not going to wait. You could have paused, so if you didn't, here it comes. I played e4, and this was the move I was planning to play all along. So yeah, e4 gives away the d4 pawn, which looks a bit crazy, but this just highlights the principle of opposite colored bishop in games, or opposite colored bishops being all about attack and not material. I was pretty much just opening up the diagonal for my bishop, and that was all I wanted to do. So after queen to d4, queen takes d4, I played as I planned, queen to h3. And yeah, this position actually is really not so easy to guard. It's funny, the computer will give this position, it'll say like about +1 for white, which is interesting because white's up 2 pawns. However, the computer, like, its defensive resources don't look impressive at all. It's like a +1 in the sheer fact that white has an extra pawn, but not any sort of advantage whatsoever. White's actually under a lot of pressure, and I think even queen d1. I think queen d1 was even a suggestion here from the computer, which, as you can see aesthetically, that just doesn't look good. But this is actually not so easy at all. Lawrence played what I thought he would play and what at the time I thought was the best move. He played queen to e3. And here, so this is the position I saw in my head when I played, when he played bishop h3, this was the position I saw in my head. I was looking at this, thinking about it. And so this was a while back. So basically we're thinking here, so I was seeing this in my head, and I thought rook e6. This is what I was planning on doing. I was going to play rook e6 here because I thought, okay, rook e6 is threatening to take this pawn and is threatening rook h6, and I was happy. But once I actually got to this position, I realized rook e6 is failed by queen to f4, threatening checkmate and threatening picking up the bishop and threatening queen h4. So for instance, rook e6, queen f4, I think the only move I can see is rook back to e8 actually, and then queen h4 and queens come off, and then I'm fighting for a draw. So I wasn't too happy about that prospect. But I found, an even more calm move. I just played h6. And you may think, okay, well, hasn't black's attack stalled? He just had to take a break and play h6. Like, surely white can just, I don't know, do something here, right? And yeah, actually white can. So white did make a bit of a progress move. He relieved his tension over here and played f4. So yeah, f4 was the move chosen here. Basically, no longer allowing this diagonal to be open. And to the untrained eye, it might seem as though black's attack is completely stopped. But actually, this is pretty far from the case, because I played rook d8 here. And it turns out white has somehow it's actually kind of very hard to play this position. I remember I was looking at this with the computer, and I think the computer even suggested the move b4. Like, the computer said the best move here was b4. Which, yeah, again, think about that. b4, just a random pawn move. Basically, it says don't move anything, just sit there, because that's all you can do. And yeah, so for instance, the white rook cannot leave the first rank because my rook comes down and mates him. The white queen, the only square it could plausibly move to would be b6. And even then, you have to be careful because e3 can come at any time. So the queen really has trouble moving. The bishop perhaps can move and allow the queen to go to f2, but even that, again, bishop going to e1 for queen to f2, again, allows e3. And yeah, it's just really actually hard to play white's position here, surprisingly. Even though white's up 2 pawns, there's a lot of pressure in this position. Because if the queen moves, the pawn comes and you're getting mated. And black's plan with rook d8 is actually just to play rook d5 and rook h5. Like, that's literally my whole plan with rook d8. I would have played rook e5, but the pawn was on f4. So I just moved my rook over so I could play rook d5 and then rook over. So yeah, actually the position is very hard to play. And my opponent made a mistake in this position due to all this pressure. And to be honest, I can't really blame him because there's actually a lot of mistakes to be made in this position. He played bishop e1 right here. Now, after the game, he mentioned that it would have been better that he would prefer to play g4. And this is actually what he meant to. You'll see what I mean by meant to. But this was the idea he actually thought was the way to go for defending. He actually felt that my attack was so strong that this was basically necessary. And after g4, though, it just turns out that black just starts ravishing. Queen takes g4, bishop g3. you can't block with the queen because I'll take on e2, so bishop g3, and then just h5. Simple threat of h4. If you try queen b6 on the counter attack, I can play rook d7, very simply. Rook c7, check, and then, yeah, we get to this position, and then, yeah, all of a sudden, how in the world is white defending this? All my pieces are all over white's position, threatening h4. It just looks like white is nearly lost. There may be some way the computer might find out of this, but this just looks game over for white. I don't really see how you get away with this. So even g4 will not have worked. But anyway, yeah, so he tried, let me go back. So he tried bishop e1 here, and then here just rook d5, exclamation mark. Very simple plan. And actually here the computer says now it's just about equal, if not better for black. So at this point, even the computer realizes black is better. That's how strong black's attack is. A pretty cool point is that if you can't play queen takes d5 here because I have multiple moves, actually, multiple moves. Queen takes d5, I can just play rook d7 actually. And yeah, whoops, like what are you doing here? You're just in trouble. Actually, it seems, yeah, I think you'd even have to play rook c8. Pretty sure rook c8 would be like forced, trying to get the bishop away. And then you just play after there. But yeah, it's not going to look good, so that doesn't work. And yeah, my plan is pretty simply rook h5. And there's not really much you can do about it. Queen f2 doesn't really work because I have this move e3 exclam. And this is another just pretty wonderful shot, not going to lie. This may look like it works, but let's show why it fails. Queen takes e3, then surprise, boom, I have this one. And again, like you're getting mated, or at least I'd like to show me how you're not getting mated. Queen g2 is a threat, rook takes e1 is a threat. You can't deal with both of them at the same time. It's not going to work out well for you. And if queen g2, then I just take, and then check again. Again, the attack prevails. So yeah, this was after rook to d5. Black was just better. And the computer says 0-0-0, but honestly, it's extremely hard to guard this position. Like I played this over with my friend Deepak. He's like 2400, and even he was trying to make out ways for white, and it just was not working. Like white was just getting messed up in every single line. So yeah, it's practically extremely hard to defend. And we actually reached the end of the game here because the pressure got to him, and this crazy move was made. G4 double X question mark, and queen takes e3 was the end of the game. After the game, he mentioned that he thought the bishop was still in f2, or he forgot he moved the bishop off of f2. It was a game 45, so quicker. But yeah, he figured the bishop was still in f2, and he tried the g4 resource too late, and it didn't work. So yeah, this was one example of just consistently laying the pressure on your opponent. I think it's easily the most trying part of the game came right here, because right here was one of those times where a lot of players could have gone down the wrong path and did something like a5, which would immediately start crumbling this structure, or they could have panicked. Maybe they would have, maybe they just would have psychologically panicked and just thought, oh no, I'm in trouble now, I'm forced losing a pawn, what do I do? But it's important to notice even the small nuances in your opponent's moves and just always look for activity. Again, just the simple fact of, hey, this bishop was protecting his king, now he's no longer protecting his king. Oh, he's willing to leave his king. How to exploit that? That simple thought process right there led to this really nice sacrificing idea that actually turned the whole table, saying, oh, you want the pawn? You want to do an overloading tactic? Go for it. Okay, go for it. There you go. There's your overload, but here, take another pawn while you're at it. All right? Okay. And then now, okay, you got your two pawns, but all of a sudden, you're really missing that bishop on g2. If this was Bughouse, you'd drop a light squared bishop on g2 immediately, or a pawn or whatever. But yeah, and then the position just got very hard. Yeah, so yeah, this was just tough. Some people ask me after the game, like, well, where did he go wrong? Where did he mess up? And the funny thing about this game was I really couldn't tell you. Like, I honestly could not tell you what white literally did wrong in this game, because bishop h3, I think, it's a pretty trying move. I mean, it's threatening to win a pawn, and that bishop wasn't doing much anyway. And to be completely honest, the computer likes all this play for black. It says black should play f6 here, and it's an equal game. But after e4, I mean, white should probably take on d4. And after queen h4, it's +1 for white. So technically, he's done everything right up to here, according to the computer at least. Computer approves of his play, but practically just chess, like human to human. I don't know. This is an easy position to defend. Computer gives queen d1 and it gives rook c3. Both moves which I don't think pop out to the human eye, and also even in those lines, it's not so simple. I think I have some stuff from queen d1. After queen d1, you can't play e3, but what's a good move? Let's try out h5. It doesn't have anything after h5. I don't know if I did any analysis on this. It's queen e6 then. Nah, nothing. Anyway, that's what the computer was saying to try out for perhaps, but yeah, I don't know. So he didn't do anything wrong up to here. Queen e3. I mean, even after this position though, it's still supposed to be +1 for white. So still, he's technically doing great, no mistakes. But I was happy with my position because after h6, the ball's in his court. I dare you to defend this position. f4, still not a bad move. Rook d8, and then we get to a position where hey, white's done everything right. He's up 2 pawns, but I'm putting the pressure on. I'm the one applying the pressure, and it's up to white to figure out how to not lose. And in this case, that just didn't happen. Bishop e1 was the try, and then like I said, after rook d5, even the computer was like, nope, black's better. So you can see how keeping the pressure up in the long run actually ended up turning this into the victory, where it seemed like white made almost no mistakes, but somehow at the end, white just fell apart, and there was just nothing to do. Like, yeah, this is just bad for white. Surprisingly enough, even though he's up 2 pawns, all of my pieces are attacking. So it's just not so good. So that was my game with Lawrence. That was fun. I think the highest USCF rated player I've beaten, which shows you I need to play in more tournaments because I don't generally get to play people this high. And I've noticed that whenever I play high rated opponents, I'm always scoring well. It's like, oh, this is the highest guy I've ever played. Oh, well, I drew them, or blah, blah. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, the next game's going to be one against Capiche. So we'll go over that in just a second. Let me pause this broadcast. Alright, this next game was against Capiche, good old Capiche Platula, and this game was insane. Straight up insane. Basically, this was the last round of the Boris Kogan, and yeah, we both had 2 points, and the winner of this game would probably tie for something, would probably get some money, because 3 just seemed like to be the score to do. So, yeah, I was white, first time ever playing Capiche. Capiche, having a pretty good year. He got up to 2100, he was down at 2060, but still doing pretty well. And yeah, 90 minutes with 30-second increment. Oh, 100 minutes, 30-second increment. So let's see what happens. So we have a Terrace French here. I've been playing the Terrace. Feel like I'm going to stop playing it soon because people like Capiche are just super prepared. So we got up to here. This is all pretty standard stuff. Nothing to really speak of here. And then we get to this position. So apparently the main move here is bishop h4. But in my head, for whatever reason, I thought the main move was rook c1. And I thought rook c1 was to prevent e5 from happening. And I thought if I played rook c1, though, that he would play knight h5, and then he'd sack an exchange on f3, and then I'd have to pressure put on me. So I didn't like that. So I tried to play knight g3, even though I knew this wasn't the move, and I knew this was probably not 100% correct. But to me, it stopped knight h5, and I know a lot of Tarrasch players like to do the knight h5 exchange sack, so I figured this might kind of throw him off his normal course. And he did start thinking here. And then he played bishop d7, which I didn't really like this move. Maybe it's not bad, but to me, I didn't think this was the most challenging way to play, for whatever reason. I thought he should have played e5. Whoops. Yeah, instead of bishop e7, I thought e5 was a pretty decent try here. Just opening everything, and I thought after e5 takes. I don't know. Like, I think I was going to play queen b3 here, and then something like bishop e6. And yeah, I don't know. So yeah, black would have this isolated pawn, but I thought black would have a lot of activity. And black has the open f-file, and I don't know. It's still a game. I mean, maybe I can play this or something, but I don't know. I thought this was okay. I thought he should have gone for this, and I thought if white has an advantage, it's not going to be anything obvious here. So yeah, maybe rook e8 to follow. So maybe queen c7, queen, something like this. Black's probably fine. He's got the isolated pawn, but he's probably fine. So yeah, but that's not what happened. So after bishop d7, rook c1. This is the move that I was going to play, but I was worried about knight h5. So now that I took care of knight h5, felt like rook c1 was fine. Played rook e8. I don't know if this is the best place for the rook. but it's a place. Yeah, I thought c8 may have been a better spot, but oh well. So here I got straight to business. This is my first tournament playing e4 in a while, and whenever I play e4, generally I just try to checkmate my opponent. So yeah, I just got right to business about to set up a battery. What else to do? Queen b6, queen d3, and knight b4. Okay, effectively stopping the battery. I drop down to queen d2, so if he goes to knight c6, at least I can argue that, hey, my queen's in a slightly better square than it was before. But instead, Caprice played actively. He played bishop to b5, attacking my rook, and then knight c6, threatening bishop to b4, prompting a3, and then he whipped out knight a5. So Caprice was doing very well, whipping out some queenside counterplay quickly. Although I must admit, I did think this was so when I showed my friends this after the end, like, oh, black has a great position. And yeah, black's position is okay, but somehow I still did not completely believe that it was okay for black to do all this action on the queen side. So yeah, queen c2's first move, just threatening bishop takes f6, seeing what he was going to respond. And interestingly enough, I think he could have even considered this little sacrifice here, but I don't know. I didn't exactly love it for him. It's complicated. Let's say takes. It's complicated, but I think that I should be okay here. Something like knight f6 might scare me a little bit, but I don't know. I still get the feeling in the long run that I should not be that worried about this position. Yeah, maybe not at all. There we go. So yeah, maybe it's all fine. Anyway, queen c2, he played rook f7. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, after queen f2, rook f7 was played, and rook f7 was a mistake, or at least this allowed me to get the advantage. And I could have done that by playing the very strong knight to e5, which I missed in game to my detriment. And this just provides a nice little advantage for white. Securing the knight into a good square. I think for c7 I can just play maybe like queen d2 or something. Not queen d2. Maybe queen d1. I don't know. But the point is I have a pretty decent position here. I'm threatening to take on f6, and all of his pieces are on the queen side, and I have decent attacking prospects. So this was the way to go. And after rook f7, I sensed that, like, my spidey senses went off. I sensed that his position was a little bit weak, and I tried to attack it in the wrong form. And so I went for knight to h5 here, which aesthetically looks cool, but it runs into a pretty annoying problem. So he thought for a while here, and then he whipped out a move I just completely didn't see. And that's never a good feeling. So he thought for a while, and I was hoping for something like g6, in which case, not g6. G6 is just like super losing, but I don't know. There's just so many. Obviously, he can't really take my knight, and yeah, if he plays g6, then I can take his knight on f6, so that's not really okay. If he plays knight to e4, which is what I thought he was thinking about, now it's just gonna no questions asked. I was going for this. I mean, I wasn't gonna. I literally was not gonna ask any questions. I was just gonna sack and ask later. Um, he may be able to come up with a defense, but I like to see it. So yeah, I was just gonna go for this position. Anyway, yeah, after knight h5, he played rook c7, and this is one of those sinking moments when you realize, like, oh no, like, what have I done? I've thrown everything away. Now my queen's hanging and my knight's hanging. If I get rid of my knight hanging problem, play knight takes f6, g takes f6, then my bishop would be hanging and my queen will be hanging. So yeah, so here was last round. You're playing for money, and you're like, well, I can resign here, or I can go for the best practical chance. And so this is when you have to go for the best practical chance. Now, I won this game, and a lot of people were, after the game, like, how in the world did you win this? And, well, this is how. Because, some people like to, this can't be sound, blah, blah, blah. Sound. It's not about being sound. It's about winning the game. It doesn't matter how you win it, just win. And there are certain ways to increase your chances to win. So this is a good illustration. So I looked at my prospects. Knight takes g takes queen d1. For whatever reason, I thought black could defend there. Like I didn't really see any threats materializing, and I felt like it'd be pretty easy for black to defend, which turned out to be wrong. Turns out actually the computer gives 0, 0, 0. Like I can find some perpetual. But anyway, I didn't really see a way to win there. So in retrospect, I should have calculated that line further, but I went for something else. So actually, I decided to give up my queen, which was, never a decision you want to do. But I figured I was counting the material over and over, that I would have almost enough material to cover the queen, and that hopefully with all of his pieces on the queen side, maybe I could whip something up. So I played bishop takes f6. He took my queen. I took back with the bishop. And here I was thinking G takes F6, Knight takes F6, King somewhere, Knight takes there, Bishop takes, and then I was hoping that maybe I could prey on the E6 pawns in some line or something like that. I don't know, or just hopefully take some sort of micro advantage of this instant of time where all of his pieces aren't working together. But he didn't allow me that option. He played G6, which I think practically is not a bad idea. So G6, just asking my knight to go back to G3, and then he'd just unwind, There's not much to do. A knight goes back to G3, he'll probably play something like Rook C8, and he's going to play Knight C4. It's a game that he's going to win, basically. I'm not going to mate him at all. So after G6, I was kind of in dismay because I was like, wow, this guy gives me like no chances to come back. Like now I'm just completely worse. So I immediately started thinking like, how do I completely confuse matters? Like I didn't touch my knight actually. I just started thinking like, okay, I gotta do something. Like I have to do something drastic here, or else I'm just gonna go down. And after some thinking, I came up with this really wacky move, knight to e5. Now, knight to e5 is extremely wacky. I mean, like, this is what I can best say is a bluff. It was basically a bluff. But the cool thing is, when you're playing a game of chess, it's just you and the guy sitting across from you. There's no computer, there's no friends to talk to, there's nothing but you and the guy across from you. And that's all you have to go. So basically what I'm saying is, okay, you can take my knight, but then I'm going to play rook e3. And then I'm going to ask you, hey, do you really have enough defenders to deal with your king over here? Like, I'm going to play rook g3. I'm going to play bishop takes here, threatening rook g8. There are lines where I can get a perpetual, rook g7, rook g8, rook g7. There are lines when I can mate. Yeah, I was basically like, are you sure you're going to defend this position? And yeah, like, just to give you an example line, let's say something terrible like here you come, and bishop takes h7, and then, yeah, you're in big trouble. Like, rook g8's already checkmate, and I'd, like, you're going to be hard-pressed to really get out of this one. For instance, takes, like, still, and this is a perpetual. So, yeah, this sort of stuff was coming. So, but that doesn't mean it's sound, though. There may be some defense. There very well may be a defense. But the question is, can he find it? And if he doesn't, I'll get a chance. And hey, at least I'll have nothing to lose. Like, I'm down to queen anyway. I might as well play and try to checkmate you. And you're going to be in the defensive. So this is me putting pressure on my opponent, saying, hey, take the piece. I don't care. I'm going for it. And he very well may have thought I calculated and found a win, or he may not have found an accurate defense. Whatever the case, he started off by first taking an e5. I was happy to get this, actually, because for one, these tricks still kind of exist. Again, not saying they work, not saying they work at all. But after takes for key 3, there are still some tricks here. For instance, here, bishop takes. And yeah, the idea is just simply rook g3 or maybe even rook f3, something of the sort, and play from there. Play from there. So yeah, it turns out even with that knight off the board, this whole rook g3 rook swing thing still is kind of scary looking, and it's because all of his pieces, queen, knight, and bishop, are literally tucked the farthest place away on the board. That's the only reason this can even look scary. So we got here, and Capiche was thinking, and I think Capiche tried to make a practical call. And he said, you know what, hey, I'm up material right now. My opponent's trying to confuse the issue. He's trying to sacrifice some stuff, go for my king, put pressure on me. So Capiche said, you know what, I'm going to be the bigger guy. I'm not going to take the sacrifice, and I'm just going to play on with my advantage. And Capiche played d4. And actually, this was actually just actually white's back in the game now. Like white is 100% back in the game. I will tell you right now, when I played knight e5, the computer said I was like -5. Like -4, -5, the equivalent of down a rook, because the computer said it's a complete bluff. Take the knight, there's no mates, I'll find a way out, don't worry. It gave some resources. But the point is, for humans, we don't know that. Like, none of us know that. I didn't know it was -5. Capiche didn't know it was -5. I actually didn't know that it was probably on losing, because I remember that in my head, one of the lines I thought was takes, I thought takes, rook g3, and h4. This is a line I saw, and something told me that this was going to throw off my attack. And yeah, this was one of the computer's recommendations that would refute the idea. But again, it was up to him to figure that out, and I left that in his court. He said he didn't want to figure that out. Okay. But the problem is that concession allowed me right back in the game. And after d4, knight f4, which is obvious, just blockading, giving the knight that was about to be taken, now I'm giving it a job. Now, actually, it's like less than minus a pawn. So white actually has some pretty decent compensation now, especially with his bishop locked here. So yeah, it's looking pretty nice. So that was an example of basically white throwing out a huge bluff, and black declined it because he didn't want to face the pressure. But now, due to that declining of the bluff, black's position is not nearly as good as it was, and now white actually has a pretty good amount of positional compensation. So again, putting pressure. That knight to e5 just confused everything, really confused my opponent, and even after that, just the series of moves after that, just you could see that everything was thrown off. It went from an easy win to, hey, I just won this guy's queen, to, oh goodness, this guy's trying to mate me, let me not get mated, to all of a sudden white's back in the game. So he played king to f7, trying to protect the e6 pawn, giving his, just, I guess, trying to protect e6. And then I played b4, which was a good move. I think top move in the position. And the idea is basically to push a4. And if his knight goes to c4, I probably push a4. And if his bishop or knight goes to c6, I still push a4. And you'll see the tactics behind this. When I play b4, I'll show you, we both calculated out to a certain point, and I'll show you what happened. So b4, he played knight c6, which I think I thought that was best. And then I played here, bishop c4, bishop takes g6, takes, knight takes, rook b1. So when I played b4, I'm pretty sure both of us saw this, like in our calculations, like before he moved his knight or whatever. I'm pretty sure we both saw this, and we were both getting low on time at this point, so it's becoming a little bit more like a sparring fight. But we did have 30-second increment. So he played a5, which I expected. I played knight to d3, which I think he expected, and he played queen to a6. So yeah, this is what I saw, and on the surface, it looks like this is just losing a piece or something, because you see the rook can't go to c3, and if rook takes d4, knight takes d3. But what I calculated in my head was that actually in this position, I could play rook takes d4. So yeah, back when I played b4, I calculated out this far and was like, yo, if we go for this, I'm good. And the idea is that if knight takes d3, I'm coming down to the seventh rank, and black's going to be the one defending. So take, check, here. Okay, so far so good. And rook c8. So black threatens checkmate, and that's an important threat to deal with. So here I was getting pretty low on time, and my gut told me there was a mate. Like my gut was like, there's checkmate somewhere here, but I thought I was winning. Turns out, there's resources that black had, but I thought I was winning, and I was like, where's the mate here? I'm trying to find a mate. So I played rook f7 because, I was like, it probably has to start with his king move. And I played rook g5, and now his king's on f8, so he didn't go to h8. So here I was thinking, and I thought for a long time here. And then I played easily my favorite move of the game, probably one of my favorite moves I've ever played. This move is pretty interesting because when I put this game into the computer, it took Stockfish on the ICC, the Blitz, and they have the Stockfish analyzer you can analyze with. I sat there and I watched Stockfish go from death 16, death 17, death 18, death 19, death 20, death 21, death 22, death 23, death 24, death 25, death 26. I watched Stockfish get to death 26 before finding the winning move here. And literally, it was like on death 27, bing, it found my move. And indeed, it took me a while to find the winning idea here, as a matter of fact. So, first I played h3. This is not the death 26, death 20. No. It's not the move. The move comes after queen to c4. The move is here. So actually, I'm sorry, I led you up in the wrong moment. This is when. So actually, this is a scary position, kind of, sort of, because black's threatening mate. Black wants to play queen c1, king h2, queen f4, g3, queen f2, and then rook c1 checkmate. And also, black's just coming in, and it seems like white's running out of time. It seems like white's going to have to just take a draw right now, and just perpetuate it out or something. And you look at the configuration of pieces, and aesthetically, it looks like maybe there should be some sort of checkmate for white somewhere. But the question is, like, where? Because you start doing the rook checks, and it's just, where is it? So here's the position, actually, sorry, where I thought, for a while, me had not that much time. It took me a while, and I was just thinking, just crunching through stuff, trying to, I don't know, just find something somewhere. Like, how am I not in trouble here? So I was just not in trouble with how do I win this game, because I really wanted to win this. And so again, this is the position where literally depth 25, depth 26, depth 27 took that deep for stockfish, a strong stockfish, to figure out what the winning idea is here. And you can pause if you want to try to find it yourself. And I'm going to spoil it pretty quickly here because I got to go soon. But the winning move is bishop to g5. And this move is just epic. It's just epic. It's a very simple move, but the idea is so strong and it's unstoppable. It's the classic case of offense and defense combined. So this bishop basically shields white from all checks. There's no check on c1. There's never a check on f4. And even if there's a check on e5, this bishop will help aid in defense of that check. That's the first function of the bishop. The second and most dangerous function of the bishop is that the bishop is heading to h6. And once the bishop gets to h6, this king will never be able to move here because I'll be able to checkmate him. And if the king can't move in that direction, then I have a discovered check coming. And literally, surprisingly, there's nothing black can do. Even with black's pieces this active, there is not a single thing black can do to get out of this. In fact, line of best play basically involves sacrificing the queen. That's like line of best play. There's also this move, this line, supercomputerish line with queen takes a4, but again, like this is just +2 for white right now. So white's just winning. All black can do is simplify into a lost endgame. That's his best hope. So Capiz tried queen to d4, which again, it just seems like, there's no way black's losing this. Like, okay, white's got the two rooks. White should have a draw at any moment, but losing this? Black's losing this? But the next move is just very simple. Bishop h6. Just completely ignoring everything and saying, you know what, it doesn't matter. So yeah, this is easily one of the most, I don't want to say amazing, but just one of the most epic ideas I've ever had to put forth in an attacking game. This bishop g5, and then literally just no matter what his next move is, just playing, for instance, he played queen d4, bishop h6, cold-blooded, just do your worst. Like, it doesn't matter because everything's perfect right now. There's nothing you can do. So he tried queen here, check, queen f4, and then at f4. Like, again, there are no more checks. What are you going to do? The bishop did all the defense. And the best move right now is he needs to play queen takes, in which case I would take with the rook. He would go here, and then I would just play rook takes. And this is just a losing endgame. Not only am I up a pawn, I have a bishop versus a knight on an open board. I'm attacking his e6 pawn. I have 3 connected pass pawns. His a pawn will become weak. Clearly winning endgame. In the game, I don't even think he realized how strong my idea actually was because he played queen to d4 and just lost after I just played this. Which, okay, yes, they were faster wins, but I was just like, hey, I know after this, I'm not going to have a hard time winning this game. So it's completely fine. One way I knew he didn't realize how strong the idea was is because he suggested this move after the game, like immediately after. But yeah, this, same thing. Check. Give me that. Checkmate. Exactly, same thing. So yeah, we get to this position, and even though white is down basically a queen, I have a queen for a rook right now. This maneuver, just the perfect combination of offense and defense, is just too much. Like that's all. Bishop from f6 to g5 to h6. That's all you need to do to win the position, and it's just dead winning. And that was it. And so yeah, I won the game, and I won the money, or the money that came with that win. And it was just a great feeling coming back from such a position. You never want to give up your queen, especially under such circumstances. Coming back from a position that the computer said, well, here, a -5, it's the -4, -5 position. But again, just putting pressure. To humans, this may have actually looked scary. And I can see why somebody might avoid this, just trying to play it practical and deny the sacrifice. But yeah, it just turned out that once the sacrifice was denied, I was able to take the initiative. And then from this point on, I started forcing the initiative and going on the hunt. Some points that do need to be brought out. It turns out actually here, I was dismayed to find out I missed an even better win, or a quicker win. Rook c7, king here, and then just knight f4. Turns out this actually wins too. Very simple idea. I'm playing rook g7 and knight g6. There's nothing black can do about it. So this is like basically mating as well. White has to like give up, black has to give up his queen. And then the other really cool point from later in the game is if we, hold on, sorry. If we scroll down to this point, after h3, Black has a magnificent saving move. Again, I'll let you pause the video and see if you can find it. You're probably not going to find it, but try. Black to play and draw. 5, 4, 3, 2. If you found the move, knight to f4, congratulations. After this move, actually black's way too powerful and white pretty much has to take a draw. The best for white is to check. To give you an example why, if here, black has a pretty startling. Well, for one, I'll tell you first, I saw knight f4 and I was like, okay, so I guess he means he wants to do like this, check, and then I was thinking he was going to go here, and then I thought the idea was to come here, which is nasty. And he comes here, and then something like this, I don't know. And it turns out that actually this line is like, I don't know, either black has to sacrifice everything or give him perpetual, or black, like if white's not careful, he gets mated. But the point is, this is not winning. This is black sacking everything. So black sacks everything into perpetual in that line. But it turns out black has the actual much stronger, boom, in your face. What exactly? Black has a counter queen sacrifice that would lead to a checkmate. So yeah, and look, it'd be black who was down the material. So yeah, actually, again, like it's almost impossible to find, I would say, but knight to f4 actually was the saving resource for black. If you look at this position after h3, you'll notice that the right rook can't really move off the file because it'll be dropping mate. So even rook c1 doesn't help. And you'll notice this queen can't move here, doesn't want to move here, can't move here, can't move anywhere along this. So c4 is the only real square for the queen. So queen to c4 seemed like the obvious move. But yeah, knight f4 was another beautiful idea with the idea of a counter queen sacrifice to checkmate. So yeah, all in all, this game was just pretty crazy. Yeah, so yeah, queen c4 seemed obvious, and then yeah, just bishop g5, and he's lost. There's nothing really to be done here, nothing really to be done at all. So yeah, that was basically that. Not too much. And yeah, so again, the theme of this video is just putting pressure on your opponents. And when you're in trouble, playing practically. Even if you're not so sure what's going on, it's better to not be sure what's going on than to be sure you're losing. So that's what you do. Mix it up if possible. Alright, that's all for this time. I'm late for getting to the gym, so I'm going to close this video out, run to the gym, and yeah, hope to see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed.